I remember how excited I was when I read this book for the first time by Hugh Ross, Genesis Question. And I realized that the account of creation in Genesis was likely talking about what scientists describe today as the Big Bang. And that's incredibly faith-boosting. In the early 1900s, when the notion of a Big Bang came out, the intelligent scientists of the day knew what that meant. A lot of them had supposed that the universe was static, that it was just infinite. And if it was, then we had all the time in the world for evolution to occur, et cetera, et cetera. But the intelligent minds of the day realized, oh my goodness, if there is a beginning, then there's a beginner. That a Big Bang actually speaks to the existence of a God. And so the last 100 years have been really crazy. An interesting study in psychology, how the church has run away from science as if the evidence we find in the universe was going to come against the notion of a God or our God of the Bible. And then science kind of stepped around the Big Bang and somehow embraced it as a suggestion that, yeah, naturalism can get us to this point. It's really bizarre. It's really not logical. And so what I'd like to look at is, why does the Big Bang suggest that the Bible is true? And does the Bible talk about creation really exactly the way that scientists tell us it went down? And that's what's so cool. So we have this Big Bang theory. And we look at the universe beginning about 13.73 billion years ago. That's our beginning of time. That's in the beginning, like the Bible says. Earth forms at the 9.2 billion year mark. By the way, about the first time, the earliest moment that you could have a planet with all the elements that we need for advanced life is at about that time. So that's when God brings us onto the scene. Earth's about 4.5 billion years old. The scientific account of Earth. Initial Earth conditions. Covered by water. Later through tectonics, the continents emerge. Dense cloud cover like most of the other planets in our solar system. And then we had this probable collision with the moon, another smaller planet that was forming, and we collided. It gave us just the perfect size moon. It starts to break up the cloud cover, and we begin to establish an atmosphere and a water cycle. Remember these details, they're very key in the Genesis account. It helped slow down the spin rate of the Earth. We've talked about that. We've been hit by approximately 50 large asteroids, mostly during the heavy bombardment. These collisions continue to break up the cloud cover. Eventually, this allowed us to see the sun, the moon, the stars. We wouldn't have seen them initially. It was too dark. But eventually, we'd be able to see those bodies out in space. Very important again in the account of Genesis. Simple plant life began. This was followed by sea creatures, insects, small animals, reptiles, dinosaurs, birds, you name it. Other animals appeared, including humans. Scientists in the early 1900s, again, a beginning would imply that there's a beginner, and it may not leave enough time for evolution to run its course. And in fact, we can say that today, it just really doesn't leave enough time. So the universe via God's Big Bang. Let's take a look at what this amazing document has to say. Well, the Bible does speak of a beginning, and that's pretty cool. Go find other holy books that talk about a beginning of our time, and you won't find it. And not to offend other religions on the earth, but that's because the God of the universe did not inspire those holy books like he inspired ours. We got it right. There was a beginning of time. Science tells us that. And the Bible also refers to God existing before time began. So very accurate. No other holy books are giving us that kind of information. This is unique to us. And this is in line with scientific evidence. The verb tenses in the Hebrew, the verbs and their tenses in ancient Hebrew are important to us. Bara means to create something brand new out of nothing. Asan, ayah are other verbs that imply something was already in existence, but now we notice it for the first time, or we're gonna do something with it and tweak it a little bit and make something that's kind of new, but not really that new. So what does the Bible suggest about the beginnings of the universe and about Earth? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, the word create, and the earth was formless and empty. That's interesting. And so the question is, how did Moses know that the earth was formless for 9 billion years? Very interesting that he said the earth was formless and empty. That's a strange phrase, but it's very accurate scientifically. Darkness was over the surface of the deep. And by the way, let me go back. I should say that when the Bible uses the word created, It's bara. It's to create brand new out of nothing. There wasn't matter here prior to that. It's boom. It's create out of nothing. And so that's why it used the word created. Now, darkness was over the surface of the deep. Once the earth formed, scientists suggest it was probably covered with dense cloud cover. The author of Job also quotes God in Job 38:9 and mentions a dense cloud cover made the clouds its garment, wrapped it in thick darkness. Very accurate depiction of what the earth was like. God hints as to what the perspective is as he describes what he did over the next yom, the next period of time. So it says the Spirit of God is hovering over the waters. That means don't be visualizing Earth from out in space, like from a satellite or something, or from the moon. Visualize what's going on and what the description in this account of creation is from the standpoint of you hovering over the waters. You're under the cloud cover, but above the surface of the water. Very important. That's where we should picture ourselves. In doing so, the verb tenses that are describing things line up perfectly with science. So now it says, let there be light. Why didn't they say God created the light? Well, it's a different verb tense. It's not bara, to create brand new out of nothing. It's one of the other verbs that would imply that the light is already there, but now it's becoming apparent to us. So as asteroids or the moon is hitting us, that cloud cover is starting to break up a little bit, so now we can tell that there's light. And we now know that there's day and there's night. It's at least lighter at one time and darker at another. An asteroid or two has now begun to break up the thick cloud cover that Job mentions, but it's still very thick, and so we can't see the sun and the stars yet and the moon, but we do know that there's a day and there's a night. Again, God created the heavens and the earth. But when we use the phrase, let there be light, it wasn't to create brand new. So when the translators of the Bible translated it, they did a pretty good job. They didn't keep saying, then God created the light, then God created this and that. No, he created the heavens brand new, heaven and earth. But after that, it was let there be light, because it was already there. It just now becomes more apparent to us. So the verb tenses used are perfect. Now, day 2, Yom 2, period of time 2, is several million years. The atmosphere is formed. So it's formed via things already created. Asteroids and moons collisions help us to get this here. So in Genesis 1:6, let there be an expanse between the waters to separate water from water. We start to get the water cycle, and the atmosphere is established. On the third period of time, the third yom, land appears. And just like scientists tell us, now it says, let the water under the sky be gathered to one place. Well, the land is starting to come up. The dry ground is appearing. Tectonics now play a major role in the health and development of the planet. Also, some vegetation begins, seed-bearing plants and trees. Now, here's what's interesting. I got caught in this. I just went blazing past that years ago. And a few years ago, a couple of my students were saying, wait a minute. Seed-bearing plants and trees? That's talking photosynthesis. I thought the planet was still fairly dark. And I said, boy, you're right. Let me look into that. So I looked at the Hebrew word for those types of plants. And what we're talking about is plants that are more like reeds and stalks. They're not like flowering fruit trees that we see now. So it's very possible to have that type of plant life at that point in time, even though we don't have direct sunlight. We're getting some light coming through, just not much. Now, day 4, period of time 4, let there be lights in the sky. Again, not God created the lights in the sky, because they're already there, and that's why the translators said, let there be lights in the sky. So after another couple asteroids, now by golly, there's a sun out there. Look, there's a moon and there's stars. So we have the sun by day, the moon by light, and we can see the stars. Now they're visible after several more millions of years. Genesis 1:14, let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from night. Again, it's not bara, not brand new. He made 2 great lights, but he had made them before. Now they're evidence, so let there be light. So it had to be difficult for the translators of the Bible, but they did a pretty good job. And now when we take a more academic look at what it says in light of science, wow, right on the money. And we're looking good. Day 5, period of time 5, sea creatures and birds. The Genesis account now uses the word created again, brand new. So now brand new creatures. This is the Cambrian explosion. Birds appear. But here's the weird thing. Do birds appear out of order? Because this would appear to be a problem in the Bible. Science suggests that there were many insects and animals before birds arrive. The Hebrew text clears it up. There's different Hebrew words for the different types of animals. And so if we go to the Hebrew text, this is not really a problem. It is a problem in the way they translated it, and it seems to be a contradiction from science. But if you talk to people that know Hebrew and can go in there and look, they say, nope, we're fine. This does line up with what we see in the account of science. Bible leaves out many phyla, so that's true. We know that it only focuses on certain ones and then man. So it's not to be an exhaustive list of every animal on the planet, so we're good. Why not mention dinosaurs? That's an interesting thing. That's again, I just love Reasons to Believe and Hugh Ross, and one of his newer books is a book on Job, and I think it makes all the sense in the world. We didn't know about dinosaurs. We didn't know about dinosaurs until the last couple hundred years. God might freak people out if you start talking about these big, huge, monstrous animals that roam the planet. Not mentioned in the book of Genesis because people didn't know they existed, so they'd probably think the book was goofy up until just these last 150, 200 years, something like that. So good book to read too, by the way. A lot of Christians say, wait a minute, the behemoth in the book of Job is really talking about dinosaurs. Not really, so I'm not going to talk about that right now. You can go get that book. It's another great book. Period of time 6, land creatures and us guys. Let the land produce living creatures according to their kind. Does this imply evolution? No. Verse 25, God made the wild animals according to their kind. He made them. And then they did it. Let us make man in our image. Again, bara was used. So something is brand new about us. There's something brand new about humans that isn't true about any other planet or animal that's on the planet. And there's something old about us, something new, something old. The old part of us is, hey, you know what? Our organism isn't that much different from some of the hominids that have been here for 7 million years. So God certainly has a nice structure, DNA, and all the other systems in the body. It's a pretty good shell. But he changed us around, gave us a much larger brain capacity, and boom, here come the humans. And then there's something about us that's new that no other animal on the planet has. So that's why, again, the verb bara was used. And what would that be about us? And what does it mean when God says, let us, 3 persons, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. This is out of the Jewish Bible, which some would say, hey, the Jews believe in one God, not 3 persons, but their holy book said, let's us make man in our own image. Good translation. So our Jewish brothers and sisters realize that, yes, you actually do believe in a God with more than one person. But anyway, so what is it about humans that's new? It's our spirit. And our spirit will live forever. And so part of us is going to exist in that dimension of time that's outside of our dimension, and it's pretty awesome. So as a person looks at the account of creation in our holy book, it is not mythical. It is not an ancient, outdated book. It is a book that describes accurately the Big Bang.